Myst, Might, Mayhem. By Han Jung-Wioya. Chapter 344. The Rumor. Part 1. The Sichuan Tang clan's declaration of seclusion. It was an inevitable decision due to a lack of alternatives, but the clan sought to delay the news from spreading as much as possible to preserve their pride as a martial arts family. However, despite their efforts, word of the Sichuan Tang clan's seclusion spread rapidly throughout the Central Plains. The Sichuan Tang clan is a martial arts family composed of blood relatives. Although they solidified their bloodline through connections with cadet branches and sub-clans, they did not completely exclude marriages with outsiders. If a union greatly benefited the clan, they would establish blood alliances through marriage with renowned martial arts families. As a result, there were some members within the Tang clan who hailed from outside the family. No matter how much they tried to conceal it, some details of that day's events inevitably leaked out. Flap flap. The carrier pigeons they sent arrived at the intelligence divisions of each martial arts clan. Since the messages were delivered by birds, distance was meaningless. In less than a fortnight, the news reached even the Righteous Alliance, the heart of the orthodox martial arts world. Military and Intelligence Division of the Righteous Alliance headquarters. The head of this division is Zhuge Duyang, the Righteous Alliance's top military advisor. Someone hurriedly entered his office. Bang! Who dares? Oh! Vice Alliance Leader, it's you. Zhuge Duyang rose from his seat and cupped his hands in salute. He wondered who would enter his office without permission, but it was the Righteous Alliance's second-in-command, Vice Alliance Leader, Wei Tak-hyen. Considered one of the 8 stars, the top masters of the current martial arts world, he was among the 5 most prominent experts within the Righteous Alliance. Usually, he had an almost perpetual smile on his face, but his expression was far from pleasant at the moment. Is this true? Vice Alliance Leader Wei Tak-hyen pushed a red scroll, a report, in front of Zhuge Duyang. Seeing this, military advisor Zhuge Duyang sighed and spoke. Phew. I sent it as an urgent document, requesting swift action. Are you only reading it now? Do you think this is the only urgent report I've received recently? If it's something like this, you could have informed me directly. I also had numerous matters to handle because of this. Moreover, I marked it as an urgent document that must be processed immediately, using a red scroll tied with a golden thread, did I not? At Zhuge Duyang's words, Vice Alliance Leader Wei Tak-hyen clicked his tongue and spoke in a conceding tone. I understand. I understand. I failed to pay proper attention to it. But what is this shocking news? The Tang clan has gone into seclusion? It's exactly as written in the report. Exactly as written. Does it make sense for the Sichuan Tang clan to admit defeat and go into seclusion because of a single person? Under normal circumstances, even an urgent report would not have reached the intelligence division. However, this report could not be ignored. The name mentioned in the report had appeared more than once. There was one particular group affiliated with the Righteous Alliance that refrained from intervening in worldly affairs unless it was a special case. It was none other than the Shaolin Temple of Mount Song. The birthplace of orthodox martial arts and the center of the righteous martial arts world. Shocking news arrived from Shaolin. Shaolin's 108 Arhat formation defeated by a single martial artist. It was an extremely shocking piece of information. Since the establishment of Shaolin, there had been only one instance of the 108 Arhat formation being defeated by a single person, or so he had heard, back in the old martial arts era. However, that situation was different. That individual was universally acknowledged as the heaven's first sword by all martial artists. Yet, such an event had occurred for a second time. Moreover, the current 108 Arhat formation was renowned for having its weaknesses rectified and its power greatly enhanced after learning from the previous incident. Qianma, Heavenly Demon. That was the name given to the person who single-handedly shattered the 108 Arhat formation. It was uncertain if this was his real name. Heavenly Demon? Who would give someone such a title? It was a moniker that only deranged individuals walking the path of evil would adopt. Who exactly is this person? I don't know. You don't know? Nothing at all? I know nothing. Although it happened within Shaolin, the little information we have is thanks to the embroidered uniform guards who entered. No clues about his appearance, attire, or any hints about his affiliation with a particular group? I heard he looks quite young. Looks young? Vice Alliance leader Wei Takhayan clicked his tongue. Once one reached a certain level of cultivation, outward appearance held no meaning. Among those who had attained enlightenment, some underwent physical metamorphosis, regaining their youthful appearance. The problem was the accurate description of his appearance. We must find him. This has gone beyond the point of simply ignoring it. Shattering Shaolin's 108 Arhat formation with a single palm strike could be considered a display of his immense martial prowess. However, the Sichuan Tang clan's seclusion was a different matter. The Sichuan Tang clan was a pillar of the Righteous Alliance and one of the 7 great clans of the martial arts world. Their influence on the orthodox martial arts community was significant. They had declared a seclusion lasting a staggering 60 years. The Tang clan itself wielded considerable power, but now, the only group capable of countering the poisons and secret weapons of the evil sects was absent. Military advisor Zhuge Duyang nodded in agreement. You are correct. From the moment he forced the Sichuan Tang clan into seclusion, it became clear that this person is closer to an evil cult leader than a righteous martial artist. Even his name or title, Qianma, already suggests an evil cult leader. What's more concerning is that there are already troublesome groups like the Heaven and Earth Society, the Four Evils Alliance, the Green Forest Faction, and the Jiangang River Bandits. This person's emergence alone can disrupt the current balance of the martial arts world. Disrupt the balance? In response to Vice Alliance leader Wei Takhayan's question, military advisor Zhuge Duyang spoke in a serious tone. The Heaven and Earth Society and the Four Evils Alliance have been quiet recently, and the evil sects lack a prominent central figure. Central figure? Yes. Any faction requires an exceptional leader. Such individuals are said to possess the qualities of a leader or the qualities of a hero. Hero? Huh. Those wicked people from the evil sects, heroes? At least to those who aspire to walk the path of evil, they will be perceived as heroes. He single-handedly shattered Shaolin's reputation and forced the Sichuan Tang clan into seclusion. Has there ever been someone so boldly brazen among the evil sects? At Zhuge Duyang's words, Vice Alliance leader Wei Takhayan's expression grew even more grave. Indeed, among the evil sect members, there had never been anyone who had made such a striking impact with just 2 actions. Vice Alliance leader, this is not a matter we can overlook. This person is truly dangerous. I am aware of that much. I will convene a meeting immediately. Yes. Please hurry. The martial artists who have already heard the rumors are hailing him as a new heaven. A new heaven? Don't tell me. Yes. Not the 6th heaven, but the 7th heaven. The emergence of a new heaven, close to evil. It was an ill omen for the dominant righteous factions and a ray of hope for the somewhat suppressed evil sects. Although he has passed away, he was the Lord I served, so I hope you'll understand the way I address him. I don't really care about such things. Just continue with your story. Very well. When the clan leader returned, there were even more red spots on his neck than usual. Seeing this, I knew that the clan leader had used the formless poison art. It wasn't something that would appear simply from training. The wounds visible on various parts of his body and the torn state of his clothing clearly indicated that he had been in a fierce battle. So? At that time, I didn't know that the person he had fought was medicine immortal He Yang Jiang Munno. Of course you wouldn't know, since he didn't say anything. Rather than that, based on the description of the person's appearance provided by the clan leader, I thought it might have been Ghost Blade. Mok Jianun's eyes flickered with surprise. An unexpected individual had been mentioned. Ghost Blade? What do you mean? The clan leader who returned ordered all the bodyguards, except for a few, to search for a corpse downstream of the valley. Although I'm not sure if the body would be intact, based on the attire he described and the broken sword. it was undoubtedly Ghost Blade. Mok Jiangan stroked his chin, his eyes slightly narrowed. It was unexpected information. Based on this, if he were to summarize, the first person his grandfather encountered was undoubtedly Tang clan leader Tang In-hei. That bastard had come to kill his grandfather from the beginning. By killing his grandfather, he aimed to take possession of a woman named Yi Sang-ah, who had inherited the ability of prophecy. After poisoning his grandfather with the formless poison, Tang clan leader Tang In-hei disappeared midway. However, it seemed that the one who existed in that disappearance was none other than Ghost Blade. He was chasing someone. Those were the words spoken by Li Guang, the second realm of the secret society, who had dealt the final blow to his grandfather. The person Ghost Blade was chasing was Tang clan leader Tang In-hei. The two of them fought, and if the words of Tang In-hu, the leader of the bodyguards, were true, the victor was Tang In-hei. Based on the uncertainty about the state of the corpse and the aftereffects of the red spots on the neck, Tang In-hei had used the formless poison art on Ghost Blade. Up to this point, it seemed that Ghost Blade had been killed by Tang In-hei. However, none of the individuals associated with the secret society believed that Ghost Blade was dead. Nearly half a year since that incident. No matter how secretive the secret society was, it was inconceivable that they would fail to notice the death of one of their executives for a whole 6 months. This meant that the likelihood of Ghost Blade being alive had significantly increased. Does that mean he endured the formless poison? Unexpected. Unlike himself, a poison man whose blood was poison itself, Ghost Blade had no means to counter the formless poison. Yet, by what means did he survive? The more he learned about this person, the more questions arose. He could say that he had avenged those who had directly killed his grandfather, but he had yet to capture the ones behind them. To catch them, he still needed Ghost Blade. Is the society leader the answer after all? The deceased Li Guang had said that the society leader of the Heaven and Earth Society was the only one who could summon Ghost Blade. For now, the society leader was the only way to make contact with the secret society, so he had no choice but to return to the Heaven and Earth Society. His revenge was not over yet. It would only end when he killed all those behind it. Clatter. Clatter. Mok Jiangan was sitting inside a carriage. There were 2 carriages in total. One of them was the carriage that Tang clan leader Tang In-hei had tried to escape in, but Sib Chun and Mong Muyak had skillfully stolen it and were making good use of it. They had divided the group into 2. One carriage carried Jia Jiamzhong, Sib Chun, Mong Muyak, and Holy Fire Priestess, while the other carriage had Ma Are Hyan as the coachman, with Mok Jiangan, Yi Sang-ah, who was still unconscious, and 8 poison snake staff Guyong Sao inside. The reason Guyong Sao was riding in this carriage was simple. It was to detoxify the delicate poison that had affected Yi Sang-ah's brain. Tang clan leader Tang In-hei had not only blocked her blood vessels but had also administered a delicate drug to her brain to ensure she would not wake up for a while, in case of any unforeseen circumstances. As a result, she had been unable to regain consciousness for nearly a week. However, starting from half a day ago, she had shown improvement due to Guyong Sao's detoxification efforts, and based on her occasional eye flutters, it seemed she would awaken soon. Chapter 345. The Rumor. Part 2. 8 poison snake staff Guyong Sao carefully pulled out the long acupuncture needle from the head of Yi Sang-ah, the granddaughter of Holy Fire Priestess, who lay motionless as if she were dead. During the process of removing the needle, Yi Sang-ah's head trembled slightly. Soon, a black liquid oozed from the tip of the needle and seeped out through the hole in her head where the needle had been inserted. Seeing this, Guyong Sao breathed a sigh of relief. Phew. Mok Jiangan asked. Is it done? Yes. Fortunately, I managed to extract all the delicate poison. Excellent work. Ho ho ho. It's nothing. At Mok Jiangan's praise, Guyong Sao shrugged his shoulders with a sense of pride. When it came to poisons, Guyong Sao was one of the top 3 experts across the Central Plains and the Western regions. Although Mok Jiangan had also learned about poisons from his grandfather, medicine immortal He Yang, and the island poison king, Bek Saha, and was proficient in their use. Guyong Sao's extensive experience gave him an edge in handling intricate details. Is she completely detoxified? Yes. No matter how skilled the Tang clan bastard is, this level of poison is not a problem. Although the Tang clan leader Tang In-hei had personally administered the poison, as long as it wasn't the formless poison, Guyong Sao was capable of detoxifying any type of poison. However, the brain was one of the most delicate areas to handle, so it inevitably took some time. She will wake up soon. It seems so. Exhale. 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 As the delicate poison was expelled, her breathing changed. This alone indicated that the blood circulation to her brain had returned to normal. Blood circulation. Seeing this, Mok Jiangun suddenly thought of Yumu Jin. Through his confrontation with Yumu Jin, Mok Jiangun had vaguely grasped how his strength manifested. Yumu Jin's explosive power was achieved through the innate condensation of natural energy and the circulation of blood and expansion of muscles that were incomparable to ordinary people. Can I do it? This technique was more intricate than manipulating energy. Controlling muscles. Clench. Mok Jiangun clenched his fist and tried to expand the muscles in his forearm and biceps. Even ordinary people could slightly expand their muscles by applying force to their developed muscles through training. However, is it impossible? The muscular expansion like Yumu Jin seemed to be an entirely different matter. It went beyond the scope of ordinary muscles. It seemed that rather than being developed through training, it was greatly influenced by bloodline. Instead, trying to expand his muscles only drained his strength unnecessarily. Should I approach it differently? The method of infusing natural energy into the blood and rapidly circulating it seemed quite useful. Mok Jiangun had a way to rapidly circulate blood, which he had grasped while becoming a poison man, so it seemed possible to try it out. Whoosh! Soon, the skin on his clenched fist turned slightly red and felt hot. I think it's working. He tried to circulate it even faster. As a result, his right hand turned even redder, and soon, white steam rose from his skin. Seeing this, Mok Jiangun's eyes flickered with surprise. If done well, it might be possible. However, as he circulated the blood even faster, the muscles in the area where the blood was rapidly circulating began to ache severely. It felt as if the blood vessels and the muscles at their center had ruptured. At this, Mok Jiangun stopped. Whoosh! Witnessing this strange sight, 8 poison snake staff Guyong Sao asked in astonishment. What did you just do? I tried to circulate my blood rapidly. Blood? Not internal energy, but is it possible to rapidly circulate blood? Yes. It's possible. It's just a bit difficult to do it normally. At those words, Guyong Sao frowned. No matter how advanced and expert he was, freely controlling the blood flowing within one's body was nearly impossible, even if he spoke of it casually. When the blood circulation speeds up, it puts a strain on the blood vessels and muscles. It made sense why Yumu Jin's muscles were developed. The thick, armor-like muscles protected his body from the rapid blood circulation. This meant that either overwhelming muscles were needed to support it, or a method was required to protect the body from strain when circulating blood. Ho! If he circulated the blood while protecting the blood vessels with internal energy, it might be possible to maintain it to some extent. In that case, it might be possible to stably amplify energy even more than when partially utilizing the reverse blood flow technique. For example, whoosh! If he circulated the blood even faster while protecting the blood vessels with the heavenly demon technique, whoosh! At that moment, Mok Jiangun's right hand and wrist turned dark red, no, a shade of brown, and steam rose from them. Seeing this, Guyong Sao spoke with wide eyes. Advancing blood, golden body? What? Isn't the technique you're using right now the advancing blood, golden body? What do you mean? The technique Mok Jiangun is currently using closely resembles the advancing blood, golden body, the unique poison martial art of He Yokwon, the second leader of the Four Evils Alliance. He Yokwon? Ah, At those words, Mok Jaeyoung recalled the conversation he had with Yumu Jin before parting ways at the Tang clan. Are you leaving? Yes. Since you said there's nothing that can be done about the demonic energy remaining in my heart, I have no choice but to return home and inquire about it. I apologize for that. The demonic energy lingering in his heart was due to the curse of the demon sword, plundering killing sword. The wound inflicted by plundering killing sword would not heal because of this demonic energy, which was no different from a curse. If it were an ordinary person, being struck in the heart by plundering killing sword would be considered a fatal condition, but thanks to the recovery power passed down through his bloodline, Yumu Jin was able to maintain his life. Demonic energy. In fact, Mok Jaeyoung had considered using his Feng arts to treat Yumu Jin's demonic energy. Of course, he couldn't be certain that it would definitely work, but if this curse had arisen from a long-standing resentment, it might be possible to dispel it using Feng arts. However, he quickly dismissed the idea. Although the Sichuan Tang clan had agreed to a 60-year seclusion due to the agreement, it was questionable whether they would continue to abide by it. If they decided to seek revenge, it was uncertain whether Yumu Jin would offer to assist them. Therefore, he judged that it was better to leave the demonic energy of plundering killing sword intact, rendering Yumu Jin unable to fully exert his power. Then, this is farewell. If you have nothing else to say, may I make one request? At Yumu Jin's words just as they were about to part ways, Mok Jaeyoung looked at him with a puzzled expression. A request? It's nothing major. I'm a bit worried after observing you. What do you mean? There seem to be few who can stop a monster like you if you decide to go on a rampage. Our family has to continuously keep watch over that place, so we can't venture too far. At most, we can only keep an eye on the nearby Tang clan. That place? What is he talking about, keeping watch over something? It seems like they are guarding something. Then, Yumu Jin spoke. Should I say it's a family matter? It's a form of service. Service. Hearing you say service makes me curious. It's nothing special. In the distant past, the founder of our family defeated an extremely large and white ox. However, this ox possesses tremendous strength and refuses to die. Mok Jaeyoung tilted his head. What is he talking about, suddenly mentioning a large ox? White ox. Yes. Anyway, the important thing is not that. If you happen to encounter someone with the surname He while roaming the martial arts world for revenge, I ask that you show mercy to them at least once. The surname He? Yes. They can be considered closer relatives to our family than the Tang clan. Of course, I've never met them personally. Is this a request? Yes, it's a request. This is also a form of connection. Can't you grant me this much? As long as they are not involved in my grandfather's death, I will do so. That's enough for me. But there must be more than one or two people with the surname He. How will I recognize them? I heard there are fewer than you think. And you'll be able to tell at a glance. Even though they aren't born with the same innate abilities as our clan, I heard they know how to control their bodies to some extent. Right. The person Yumu Jin had mentioned must be that He Yok one. The phrase, know how to control their bodies to some extent, seemed to imply that he had mastered the method of rapidly circulating blood to explosively increase his power. They seemed to call it the advancing blood, golden body. Who is this He Yok one person? He is the second leader of the Four Evils Alliance. He is known to possess martial prowess comparable to the 8 stars. I see. In any case, now that he knew the name and affiliation, there was no need to bother him unless he was entangled with the secret society. But wasn't the Four Evils Alliance a group formed by the remnants of the annihilated Nine Blood sect and other evil sect members? Little by little, connections seemed to be forming, whether he knew it or not. At that moment, ugh! Along with a groan, Yi Sang-ah, who had been asleep, opened her eyes. After blinking a few times, she suddenly sat up in surprise and looked around. Who are you? In response to her question, Gyeong Sao scoffed and said, after all the effort I put into treating you and waking you up, that's the first thing you ask? What? You should be thanking this person. Gyeong Sao politely pointed at Mok Jaeon with his palm. At this, her eyes widened. Having just awakened, she was disoriented and couldn't recognize who was who. However, after staring intently, she finally recognized Mok Jaeon's face, and her eyes were filled with joy. Ah. With tears welling up in her eyes, she immediately prostrated herself inside the carriage. Thud. She even banged her forehead hard against the floor. Surprised by her sudden action, Gyeong Sao couldn't understand. No matter how much I told you to be grateful, only for this moment have I been waiting. At her overwhelming voice, even Mok Jaeon couldn't hide his confusion. She was seeing him for the first time, so why was she acting this way? As Mok Jaeon stared at her intently, he slightly moved his hand. Then, her head, which was pressed against the floor, was lifted by the internal energy. Oh? As her head was raised against her will, her eyes trembled. Mok Jaeon asked her, "What have you been waiting for? Aren't you seeing me for the first time today? The sacred orb showed you to me." Sacred orb? The one that bestows the revelation of holy fire? That's right. The revelation told me that you would come to find me, the lowliest of the low, and pave the way for me. Pave the way? Yes. You are the one who will purify this tainted world with sacred flames and lead the foolish beings to the demonic path. Chapter 346. The Rumor. Part 3. Yes. You are the one who will purify this tainted world with sacred flames and lead the foolish beings to the demonic path. At her voice filled with joy, Mok Jaeon's expression turned bland. Although he had secured her because of the prophecy or whatever it was, she was rambling on about something he had little interest in. So, Mok Jaeon coldly drew the line. I'm not interested. What? At Mok Jaeon's words, Yi Song-ah, the granddaughter of Holy Fire Priestess, couldn't hide her bewilderment. As a devout follower of the Fire Faith Order, although she had unintentionally inherited the ability of prophecy, she believed that everything she had seen through the sacred orb would happen in the future and that it was her duty to assist in it. Why is he reacting this way? If what she had seen through the sacred orb was true, the person in front of her was undoubtedly the one from the prophecy. But why was he showing such a cold reaction? In fact, he was treating it as if it were someone else's business from the beginning. The prophy. Shoo. Huh? What I'm curious about through you is not that. Is it true that you inherited the ability of prophecy? At Mok Jaeon's question, Yi Song-ah felt inwardly disappointed. She had been waiting for him for a long time, but he was quite different from what she had expected. However, her disappointment didn't last long. Through the sacred orb, she had seen all of his disappointment, pain, sorrow, and anger towards the world. Therefore, she considered it natural for him to show such an indifferent attitude. Moreover, Ahura Mazda is a dual-natured deity, so he can be both a Spenta, good god, and an Ahriman, that is, an Engra, evil god. He was not absolute good. He could be good to someone, but he could also be evil to someone else. That's why he is called a dual-natured being. Can't you answer my question? If you mean the ability to resonate with the sacred orb, then yes. Resonate with the sacred orb? Yes. To be precise. Did you say that you can only receive revelations if you have the sacred orb? That's correct. I see. And you saw me through that sacred orb? Yes. I saw you. That's why I ask you to lead us, the foolish beings, on the path you pave. At her request, Mok Jaeon scoffed. He didn't know what kind of revelation it was that drove him like some kind of savior. He was far from being such a being. The path I walk is only stained with blood. If that is the process of purification, I can accept it to any extent. Purification? The current world is utterly tainted. In your absence, Let's stop talking about that. Mok Jaehyun waved his hand in dismissal. In the first place, he didn't even know what the being inside him was. However, both Holy Fire Priestess and this woman seemed to have high expectations of that being. But he was too different from the being they knew. The only thing that drove him was revenge. Enough of that. Let me ask you one thing. Command me. Do you know anything about the secret society? At this question, Yi Sangha's eyes flickered with surprise. It seemed she also knew something about the secret society. Soon, she opened her mouth. I don't know how long they have been with the Fire Faith Order, the main sect. But according to my grandmother, no, Holy Fire Priestess, they are known to be like a shadow to the main sect. Shadow? Yes. But as far as I know, they are not with them now. I already know that from your grandmother. Grandmother? Yi Sangha's eyes widened. She thought her grandmother was imprisoned in the golden prison of the imperial palace. At her reaction, Mok Jaehyun spoke with narrowed eyes. As I thought. Pardon? I doubt that the revelation can be called a prophecy. What do you mean by that? Exactly what I said. If the revelation is a prophecy, shouldn't it have known that the secret society tried to manipulate the Fire Faith Order as they pleased and betrayed them? That's. Moreover, it couldn't even foresee that Holy Fire Priestess would be released. I don't know what prophecy or revelation is. Are you saying my grandmother has been released? At that question, 8 Poison Snake Staff Byung Sao pointed to the back of the carriage with his thumb and said, she's in the carriage following behind. At those words, Yi Sangha's eyes reddened. It seemed she had no idea that her grandmother was so close to her. Seeing her like this, Mok Jaehyun judged that the credibility of the revelation and prophecy was diminishing. What use was a power that couldn't even read one step ahead? It's merely symbolic. He thought there might be some value in using the prophetic power since it had been transferred to the granddaughter, but it didn't seem much different from the powerless Holy Fire Priestess. With a disappointed gaze, Mok Jaehyun spoke to her. I wanted to know what the leader of the secret society wants and where he is using the power of that revelation, but it seems that's difficult for you as well. Are you talking about what the leader of the secret society wants? Yes. But I don't particularly. The leader of the secret society desires your death. At her words, Mok Jaehyun flinched and looked into her eyes. Her reddened eyes had suddenly become serious. He wants my death, what do you mean? I don't know the exact reason, but if what I saw in the revelation is true, the leader of the secret society fears you. That's why he seeks to kill you. I can't understand. How can someone who has never seen me fear me? At Mok Jaehyun's question, she frowned. Then, she carefully parted her lips. Could it be that the incarnation has no memory of him at all? Incarnation? Yes. As far as I know, you are his incarnation. Have you not accepted him who resides within you? At her words, Mok Jaehyun's expression turned somewhat bland. At this, she spoke, sensing his mood. I thought you had stepped forward because you had regained the power you had lost. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's still too early. At her sighing reaction, Mok Jaehyun spoke in a sharp voice. Please speak in a way that's easy to understand. The revelation that comes through the sacred orb shows all the possibilities that may unfold in the future in fragments. That's why even I don't know when it will happen or if it will definitely happen. Isn't a possibility just a prediction? Prediction is imagination, but possibility is one of the many paths that can happen. One of the paths? Yes. This is a simple principle yet very complex. Although we met today, if by any chance my luck was bad and I had died at the hands of the Tang clan leader, there would have been a reality where I didn't meet you. It's a hypothesis. It can be called a hypothesis, but it's a possibility. Because in some path, the reality where I died and didn't meet you can happen. No matter how intelligent Mok Jaehyun was, it was difficult to fully understand what she was saying. It was like trying to grasp a fleeting cloud. There are countless variables in the human world, so even a single discrepancy creates numerous branches of flow. Those chosen by the sacred orb read the possibility that comes closest among those branches of flow. In other words, it's not something that will definitely happen, but the possibility with the highest probability of happening. That's right. So, in the possibility you saw, was I that being called him? That's right. Flinch. She couldn't finish her words. The moment their eyes met, her entire body froze, and it was difficult for her to even breathe. Why was she reacting this way? Unable to understand, Mok Jayangan said to her, I am myself. Don't identify me with that being called him. Of course, I have no intention of silently accepting what you call him either. It was a kind of aversion. Why were they projecting that being called him onto him when he knew nothing? Moreover, after learning the truth that even his grandfather had considered him to be that being called him and had hidden it from him until now, he felt as if his existence as Zhang was being denied. I, absolutely, don't think like that. You don't think that way? Really? It's true. Even if you, as an incarnation, don't accept yourself, I believe that you, Seeing her suffering, Mok Jayangan suppressed the energy he was exuding. Then, as if it became easier for her to breathe, she exhaled roughly and continued speaking. I have no doubt that you are the one who will lead us. If you ask me to offer my life here, I will do so. At her blind devotion, Mok Jayangan snorted. Although she said she would sacrifice her life for him, it didn't evoke any particular emotion in him. Rather, it made him want to distance himself even more. Anyway, you're saying you don't know why the leader of the secret society fears me. That's right. You're not helpful at all. Clench. At Mok Jayangan's words, she bit her lip tightly. It hadn't been long since she realized that the power to receive revelations had been passed down to her due to the misguided choice of her grandmother, the current holy fire priestess. And because there were those who sought to exploit that power, she had desperately tried to hide it. But hearing such words from the one she had been waiting for made her feel overwhelmed. If you desire, I will resonate with the sacred orb and receive a revelation. Didn't you say it's just a possibility anyway? Reading that close possibility is the duty of us holy fire priestess. I will directly prove to you that I am a person you need. Oh. That's very reassuring. At Mok Jayangan's sarcastic remark, she trembled. Oh my. Watching this silently, Gayong Sao scratched his head and smacked his lips. It seemed like she would cry at this rate. The lord he served in his later years seemed to have no hesitation regardless of whether it was a woman or not. So, he carefully interjected. By the way, did you say your name is Sona? Yes. Where is that sacred orb? We already retrieved your belongings from the Tang clan, but we couldn't find anything that could be called a sacred orb. At his words, she answered. I don't have it with me right now. You don't have it? Yes. I couldn't keep it with me because there was someone who coveted the power of the sacred orb. She thought of Tang In-hei, the Tang clan leader. Reading his hidden greed, she had judged that she shouldn't possess the sacred orb. Oh, so you hid it somewhere? Yes. Then where is it? It's in a cave on a cliff near Zhaoyang in the northern part of Hubei province. At those words, Gayong Sao frowned. Then, he exclaimed in surprise. Wait, if it's a cliff near Zhaoyang, isn't that where the spiritual sword sanctuary is located? That's right. Oh my. At Gayong Sao's reaction, Mok Jayangan asked curiously. Do you know that place? Of course I do. The spiritual sword sanctuary is known as the Holy Land of the Sword. The Holy Land of the Sword? It's a place where countless sword masters who wield swords must visit to seek teachings. Chapter 347. The Rumor. Part 4. Of course I do. The spiritual sword sanctuary is known as the Holy Land of the Sword. The Holy Land of the Sword? It's a place where countless sword masters who wield swords must visit to seek teachings. Is that so? It must be quite famous then. Ho ho ho. At Mok Jayanun's bland reaction, 8 poisoned snake staff Guyong Sao instinctively knew that he had no knowledge of the spiritual sword sanctuary. The reputation of the spiritual sword sanctuary was truly high. There were 2 reasons for this. The first was that the majority of the famous swords in existence were made at this spiritual sword sanctuary. The owner of the spiritual sword sanctuary, O Qianmu, is the greatest sword craftsman of our time. A sword craftsman? Is he a blacksmith? That's right. Is that so? Don't people usually call them sword artisans? At this question, Guyong Sao shook his head and said, Master O exclusively makes swords. He only makes swords? Yes. As far as I know, the spiritual sword sanctuary has only made swords in that place for hundreds of years. He doesn't make any other weapons? That's what I understand. It's quite an interesting place. A place that only makes swords. But I don't think it could have become famous just for that. Indeed. That family is said to be descendants of Oyezi, who was called the greatest swordsmith of the Yu Kingdom during the spring and autumn period. They have created the finest swords. The famous sword Ily, the exclusive weapon of Zhang Haiyan, the leader of the Righteous Alliance, was also born from his hands. Oh. At those words, Mok Jayanun showed a reaction for the first time. If he was referring to the leader of the Righteous Alliance, he must be one of the heads of the 3 great powers in the martial arts world and one of the 6 heavens. If he was a craftsman skilled enough to make a sword for a top master of that caliber, he was undoubtedly extraordinary. If he's such an exceptional craftsman, it's no wonder that sword masters would line up. Indeed. However, Master O doesn't make swords for just anyone. That means it can't be obtained by paying a price, right? Ho ho ho. That's correct. From what I've heard, Master O has great pride as a craftsman. Therefore, he only makes swords for those he acknowledges as true masters of the sword or those who pass his test. Well, if he makes such extraordinary swords, it's understandable for him to have that much pride. That's right. Since you also wield swords, perhaps, no. I'm content with these 2 swords. Mok Jayanun tapped the 2 demon swords hanging from his waist with his palm. Evil Commandment Sword and Plundering Killing Sword. If there was a theory that the owner of the spiritual sword sanctuary was a descendant of Oyezi, these swords were made by Oyezi himself using a rare mineral called Guanya black iron. Of course. You already possess the finest swords. He possessed swords that ordinary people couldn't even handle. There was no need for him to be greedy for more swords. Then, Mok Jayanun spoke. Anyway, it's fortunate. If it's just the territory of a group of craftsmen who make swords, there shouldn't be much difficulty in retrieving the sacred orb. At Mok Jayanun's words, Guyong Sao showed a somewhat troubled expression. When asked why, the spiritual sword sanctuary is not simply a place that only makes swords. If not, then what? Do they also cultivate martial arts? It's as you said. They are sword craftsmen, but their knowledge of swords is also extremely high. Their knowledge of swords is high. Have you heard of the term all streams return to one source? All streams return to one source. Doesn't it mean that 10,000 streams converge into one? That's right. All streams return to one source. It was a term originating from Buddhism, derived from the idea that no matter how one trained, the end was nirvana. Those who cultivated martial arts also often mentioned all streams return to one source. This was because they believed that in the end, the path would converge into one. The spiritual sword sanctuary believed that to make the finest swords, they had to fully understand the sword, and for that, they honed their swordsmanship. Coincidentally, that made them understand the sword better than anyone else. They are sword craftsmen and exceptional swordsmen at the same time. That's right. But they're not just exceptional. Then? The owner of the spiritual sword sanctuary, O Qianmu, is one of the 6 heavens, the pinnacle of the current martial arts world. At those words, one of Mok Jayanun's eyebrows rose. O Qianmu, one of the 6 heavens and the supreme spiritual sword craftsman. He was one of the 6 pinnacles of the current martial arts world and was considered the closest to the top when it came to knowledge of the sword, not just martial arts. Mok Jiangnan looked at Yi Song-ah, the granddaughter of Holy Fire Priestess, and asked, "How did you even get into such a place?" "That's..." Yi Song-ah hesitated to speak. It wasn't that she shouldn't say something, but her reaction was peculiar. Of course, Mok Jiangnan paid no attention to this and said, "Don't waste your energy and just tell me." "The 3rd son of the owner of the spiritual sword sanctuary is a follower of our fire faith order." At those words, Guyang Sao asked as if it were a coincidence. "Are you saying that the 3rd son of Master O is a follower of the fire faith order?" "Yes." "Then did you hide the sacred orb through him?" "Yes, yes." At her cautious attitude, Guyang Sao's eyes narrowed. It wasn't strange for someone to be drawn into the fire faith order, even if a follower had come from a branch of the Sichuan Tang clan. But her unusually timid behavior was odd. Moreover, come to think of it, even if he's a follower of the fire faith order, the sacred orb is a treasure of the fire faith order. For him to be trusted enough to be entrusted with such a precious item, he must be really trustworthy. Could it be that he's your fiancé? At that moment, Mok Jiangnan abruptly asked. At that question, Yi Song-ah's face instantly turned bright red. Seeing her reaction, Guyang Sao clicked his tongue. His ability to read other people's emotions and thoughts was astounding. By the way, it was quite a coincidence that he was her fiancé. Oh my! Is that true? Her face turning red as if it would burst, she couldn't answer out of embarrassment. Seeing this, Guyang Sao laughed with a chuckle. It reminded him of his grandchildren. This was exactly the kind of reaction one would see at this age. On the other hand, Mok Jiangnan couldn't understand her reaction. He vaguely understood what the emotion of fondness was, but was it something to be embarrassed about to this extent? As he was puzzled, suddenly, someone came to Mok Jiangnan's mind as he looked at her. It was none other than Chang Ryong. He remembered Chang Ryong showing a similar reaction for some unknown reason. She was embarrassed? The corners of Mok Jiangnan's mouth curled up slightly. Then, Guyang Sao spoke. Then, Miss Song-ah's fiancé. Don't call him that. Just call him O Yanwo, a follower of the main sect. O Yanwo? Yes. Guyang Sao smiled brightly. It seemed she really liked him a lot. Wasn't this the most shining moment in life? For him, who had entered his twilight years, the sight of someone liking another and being embarrassed was the epitome of youth, so just watching it made him feel satisfied. Ahem. Anyway, young master. Since the 3rd son of Master O is a follower of the Fire Faith Order, it seems we can easily retrieve the sacred orb. You think so? At Mok Jiangnan's doubtful tone, Yi Song-ah answered with a determined voice. I can bring it. I don't know if bringing it will be of much help. Mok Jiangnan already didn't have much faith in the power of the sacred orb or the revelation. At this, she became determined. If I find the sacred orb, I will receive a revelation of what you desire. I really hope so. If that happened, it could somewhat shorten the time. There would be no need to go through the leader of the Heaven and Earth Society. In the middle of a steep mountain range not far from Zhaoyang in the north of Hubei province. At that high location, there was a manor with a few houses gathered together. On the signboard at the entrance of the manor, it was written as follows. Spiritual Sword Sanctuary. Smoke from the forge rose from various places in the manor, and among them, there was a basement in a building without a chimney. And in that basement, there was a prison with iron bars, and inside, a young man with restraints on both arms was kneeling. The young man, with a distorted face, opened his mouth. Brother. Please give it back. That's really... Shut up. A middle-aged man outside the iron bars reprimanded him. He was a man in his early 40s with dark skin and a well-developed upper body. In the man's hand was something that looked like a pouch. That's really... I told you to shut up. I wondered where you went every night, and you were worshipping and revering this thing. Tack. the man took out what was inside the pouch. It was a sacred orb with an incomparably brilliant blue color. Clench. Seeing this, the young man bit his lower lip so hard that it bled. Yanwu. I knew you were involved in a heretical religion that deceives people, but aren't you ashamed? Your new mother thought you had come to your senses after returning. But you were doing this behind our backs. Instead of paying respects to our ancestors, how can you show such a pathetic sight? Brother. You won't have anything to say even if you have 10 mouths. I have never been ashamed of my choice. Gah. Before he could finish his words, the middle-aged man shouted in rebuke. The young man, Yanwu, whose blood vessels were blocked, suffered from the rebuke infused with internal energy. More, his internal energy has deepened. The middle-aged man in front of him was his eldest brother, Huang. He was the deputy owner of the spiritual sword sanctuary and the best swordsman except for his father, the owner. Brother. Stop it. The one who spoke now was a man in his late 30s with slit eyes, Guang Suk, the second brother who was born from the same mother as the eldest brother, Huang. Unlike them, Yanwu was their half-brother and the youngest. You think I can stop now? Our youngest brother is doing this absurd thing, and you say nothing about it? Brother. Whether we like it or not, he is a member of our Gu family, and even if we have different mothers, we are still brothers. Hate the sin, not the person. You're saying such nice things. Moreover, with the massacre that occurred near the cliff and the Righteous Alliance sending people, it's quite a mess. I think it's time to stop this appropriately. Phew. The eldest brother, Huang, let out a sigh close to a lament. He wanted to reprimand him more out of anger, but what his second brother said was right. It was already a mess because the people from the Namgun clan who had visited the main sanctuary and were descending the mountain were all slaughtered, including the clan leader. Because of this, the main sanctuary was also under suspicion, and the people sent by the Righteous Alliance were being troublesome. With his father's mood also unpleasant, he couldn't keep the boy locked up any longer. Stay here for a while, cool your head, and reflect on your actions. Brother. If you don't come to your senses, I'll keep you locked up for the rest of your life. If you don't want that, you better show some proper reflection. Be brother, please just give that back. You fool. Bang. Huang kicked the iron bars with his foot and went upstairs with an angry face. As he went up, the second brother, Song, clicked his tongue and spoke in a sarcastic voice. I told you not to come back, didn't I? Why did you come back and make things worse? TSK. After reprimanding him once more, Song waved his hand and went upstairs. Nash. Yanwu gritted his teeth as he looked at the stairs leading to the upper floor. Unlike the eldest brother, the deputy owner Huang, the second brother Song was a snake-like man. Although he was the youngest, he had always envied and bullied him for his superior talent as a craftsman. That's why they had never gotten along since childhood. Even now, it must have been that bastard who had followed him and told the eldest brother. What should I do? Being trapped here wasn't a big deal. However, the sacred orb, which could be considered the embodiment of holy fire itself, had been taken away. Putting aside his eldest brother, he couldn't guess what that Song would do, knowing how much he cherished this. Clench. Sanga. He felt sorry for her. She had trusted him and entrusted it to him, but he never thought he would be caught so absurdly like this. Yanwu mumbled with his mouth and finally spat something out. Tui. Clink. It was a thin and long wire. Even in his confusion, he had managed to secretly take it just in case. I have to get it back somehow. The sacred orb was a precious treasure of the order. Burly-looking men wearing leopard skin and fur clothing, with clubs and weapons on their shoulders, surrounded something. It was a prison cart for transportation. Inside the wooden cage was a woman whose clothes were half torn, revealing her white flesh in various places. The woman with half-white hair and a mysterious aura exuded a strange atmosphere, perhaps because of the clothes she was wearing. Outside the prison cart where she was, there was an old woman leaning on a cane. The old woman spoke to the woman. "This much should be enough to deceive them, Lady Chenchu." "You think so? With this much, do you think they won't be able to resist?" "That's right. Men are always eager to act like a knight-errant even for trivial reasons if given a proper pretext." Heh. Indeed. Moreover, if they see you, Lady Chenchu, so beautiful, captured by rough bandits, they absolutely won't be able to resist. Of course. Even if it seems like a simple and shallow trick, it unexpectedly works well. Ho ho ho. She shrugged her shoulders with a triumphant look. They had prepared according to the carriage's route, so now they just had to wait for him to come. In about half a shirchen, he will pass by here. Whoosh! At that moment, a gust of wind blew as if a storm had rushed in. The sudden wind made her subordinates, who were acting as rough bandits, flustered and confused. But in that fleeting moment, Lady Chenchu and the old woman looked up. Swish! Something passed above them at a tremendous speed. It was only a brief moment, so it was very blurry, but it was clearly something riding on a sword. Seeing this, Lady Chenchu spoke with a stiff face. "That just now, it was him, right?"